All right, I would like to call to order the meeting of October 25th of the Downers Grove Public Library Board of Trustees. Can we have a roll call, please?
Sure. Trustee Earl?
Here.
Trustee Evelyn? Here. Trustee Gagani? Here. Trustee Stapleton? Here. Trustee Humphreys?
Here.
Trustee Graber?
Here. We will very soon officially induct our two new members, but I'm glad they're here. Welcome all of our visitors. Thank you so much for showing interest in the workings of the library. We know that our community loves this library, and we love the library as well. So thank you, and we're happy to hear from you, and you have constructive suggestions. We now move on to welcoming two new members of the Downers Grove Public Library Board of Trustees. So,
and Caitlin Vavelitis, who is our recording secretary and a notary, will be doing the oath of office.
Okay, who wants to go first?
So
Kim is on the
That's my first victim.
walk around front for the camera. I should point out that all of our meetings are video recorded now, so smile.
So raise your right hand and repeat after me. Okay. I state your name.
I, Swapna Gigani,
Have been appointed
have been appointed
to the office of Library Trustee
to the office of Library Trustee
of the Downers Grove Public Library
of the Downers Grove Public Library
in the village of Downers Grove
in the village of Downers Grove
in the county of DuPage aforesaid.
in the county of DuPage aforesaid.
Do solemnly swear
Do solemnly swear
that I will support
that I will support
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of the office of Library Trustee
the duties of the office of Library Trustee
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Welcome to Swapna Gigani.
Thank you.
Thank you. I state your name,
I, Kim Stapleton,
having been appointed
having been appointed
to the office of Library Trustee
to the office of Library Trustee
of the Downers Grove Public Library
of the Downers Grove Public Library
in the village of Downers Grove
in the village of Downers Grove
in the county of DuPage aforesaid,
in the county of DuPage aforesaid,
do solemnly
do
swear
solemnly swear
that I will support
that I will support
the Constitution of the United
the
States
Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of the office of Library Trustee
the duties of the office of Library Trustee
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Welcome Kim Stapleton to the Board of Trustees. Well, it's very exciting to be at full table tonight for the first time in a while. So welcome to you both, and welcome to all of the rest of you who are here, all 6 members of the Board of Trustees. Let's move on now to reviewing the minutes from the meeting of September 27th. Are there any additions or corrections?
Dave, I'll make the motion that the minutes presented in the packet dated September 27th be approved.
A second.
Any further discussion? It's been moved and seconded that we approve these minutes. If I hear no objection, we will declare them approved unanimously. Let's take a look at the financial reports. You have anything you'd like to present to us beyond what we've seen here?
We are 75% through the year, on track in both revenue and expenditures. And there was just one item that was not on the invoices of note, in case you were wondering. The Biblioteca invoice is service agreements for circulation equipment and related to security. So that invoice is listed in the regular invoices, but does not appear on the invoices of note. Any other questions?
Any other questions here?
I did have one question. It's on the last page of detail, and it was under supplies. It said trustee fax file publications. I mean, it's a very nominal amount, but I'm just curious what that was. Was that related?
You
to
just
trustee?
reminded me that I forgot to bring those in. That is the trustee fax file book, which is a required reading for the library trustees for the Illinois Public Library per capita grant this year. One of the requirements is that the trustees review chapters 1 through 5 of the trustee fax file, placing particular emphasis on the library board bylaws contained in chapter 3. So, I will make sure I run and get those before you all leave this evening. Swapna and Kim received their new copies just the other day when they came for their orientation. So by January 1st, you all need to have read chapters 1 through 5.
Okay, homework assignment.
By January 1st.
That's in my library. Come and read.
Any other questions or comments on the, either the September financial statement or the October invoices? Do I hear a motion to approve?
I will move to approve the October 2017 invoices totaling $122,613.54. The acceptance of the October 2017 credit memo totaling a whopping $5.40. And the ratification of September 2017 payrolls totaling $217,089.79.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded that we approve accept the financial report and approve the invoice payments. Do we need a roll call on this? I think we do, yes. Let's have a roll call.
Trustee Earl?
Yes.
Trustee Evelyn?
Yes.
Trustee Gagani?
Yes.
Trustee Stapleton?
Yes.
Trustee Humphries?
Yes.
Trustee Braber?
Yes.
It's been approved unanimously. We now move on to the areas of public comment. This is your opportunity to express your feelings to us, suggestions, hopefully constructive. First of all, public comment on agenda items. And I need to remind us all that we do ask that you observe a 5-minute limit and that the library board cannot engage in a question and answer session at this point. So anyone like to?
And we do
Address
have a
the board.
microphone for
Oh, yeah.
public comment if anybody is.
Joni, could you step?
Well,
Or can we bring the
Yeah.
microphone to her?
I have come to the microphone. I can't just speak loud. You might be able to speak loud. Just a second, I'll get there.
Well, for the recording, though, we need to.
I'll bring it to you.
there, close enough.
It's good to
Yeah.
know a librarian.
Please state your
Hello,
name.
everyone. I'm Joni Hansen, and I'm the president for the Downers Grove Friends of the Library, which is that we are not anything to do with your board. We are a volunteer group. I just wanted you to know that we're having, you probably know already, we're having our used book sale this coming weekend, and we'd like you to spread the word to any of your friends that you see standing in line at the Jewel or other interesting places. Thank you.
Does anyone else have any comments for the board tonight? Hearing none, let's move on to the section on new business. Election of officers. Our president, who was elected last year for a 2-year term, has her term on the board has expired, and so we have an incomplete 1-year term for the president to be for a president to be elected by this board. The president is elected from the board. We don't do this very often, and so is there some discussion? What is the pleasure of the board?
I nominate John Gray.
I'll second.
Are there any other nominations? Is there a motion to close the nominations?
I'll make the motion to close the nominations.
Any objection? Hearing none, the nominations are closed. You accept?
Accept. Thank you.
We still need to vote. We still need to vote. We need a motion to, since there's only one candidate, we still need a motion to appoint him.
I'll make the
to elect
motion to
him.
appoint Jonathan Graber as president for the 1-year unexpired term as president of the Downer School Library.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Well, let's have a roll call.
Okay. Trustee Earl?
Yes.
Trustee Evelyn?
Yes.
Trustee Gagani?
Yes.
Trustee Stapleton?
Yes.
Trustee Humphries?
Yes?
Should I abstain?
No.
I guess you can vote for yourself,
Yes.
Trustee Graber.
All right. I think we should welcome you. Now, officers elected for full terms take office at the end of the meeting where they are elected. The bylaws are not real clear on when they're filling a vacancy.
And they are unclear, so feel free to hand it over or not as you decide.
I think, well, it's up, how.
What's your pleasure?
I think you should proceed.
All right,
We'll do it together.
Well, I'm just thrilled you're accepting that. That's wonderful. And then we will move on. We only have one other officer, and that is the office of secretary, and that's me for another year. So, good. Let's discuss the holiday closing schedule.
All right. We have our usual 7 paid holidays, our 1 closing for our staff training day, and then 6 unpaid closings, 2 of which are partial. Several of those revolve around the Rotary Grove Fest. We do close for partial days on the Friday and Saturday, and for the full day on Sunday, due to the location of said fest and the parking situation that arises from its location.
I'll make the motion to accept the paid holidays and other closing as presented in the packet under item 9A, or 9B, sorry.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the paid holidays and other closings as presented. Any further discussion? I think we can do a voice vote on this one, can we not? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion is carried unanimously. Employee benefit premium plan.
All right. So, you all have everyone's seen my written report that was in the board packet. Anybody who has has a laptop or a phone, you can find the board packet on the library's website, on the board and finances page. So a few years ago, the library started paying a set dollar amount per benefit level. So there was an annual dollar amount if they were paid for individual coverage, for employee plus children, or employee plus spouse, and a third amount if it was family coverage. The village has a very different structure. They actually use percentage for individual, and then percentage for anything beyond individual coverage. The percentages for the village varies from 2.5% for the individual up to 12.5%. That's the employee portion of the premium. 12.5% for the family and plus coverage. The library's plan currently has a minimum of 3% for the employee portion, up to a maximum of 20.4% for the employee portion. The library's plan also, our premium structure gives an incentive to employees to participate in the PPO option. However, the village has structured their premiums to incentivize staff to utilize their VIBA plan. And they do credit that plan with the performance on that plan with the flat renewal rates that have been for that plan over the last 2 years. So they really are hoping that we will incentivize more library employees to participate in the VIBA plan. Now that plan is a high deductible plan, but it comes with a health savings account that to the amount of $2,500 annually that is placed in that account, and that account goes with the employee. That's theirs forever. It does not expire. They can use it, after you retire. You can still be using the money in your health savings account. If you leave and take a job elsewhere, still yours until it's gone. If you look at the chart, you can really see that the premiums that the library pays are kind of all over the map, and the premiums under the Village of Downers Grove structure. It's very straightforward. It also makes it easier, I believe, in future years to be able to tell employees the library pays this percent, your portion is that percent, and no matter how much the premium increases, you pay the percentage.
Julie, what was our increase last year? Do you remember?
It was flat.
Okay.
It's flat.
No, so this is the second year in a row for us as well.
2 years,
Okay.
because we are with the village, whatever they get for their premiums are ours.
Okay,
So
okay.
they have not changed their premium structure in the
So,
last
and then
2 years.
I noticed that this could cost an additional $54,000 for the library. And has that been built into the budgeting, or is that still,
That is beyond what is in the draft budget
Okay.
that is in there now.
Okay.
Is that amount going to be a recurring amount, do you feel, or is that kind of a one-time thing as we,
That would be,
Catch up, so to
that
speak?
one-time catch-up, and then it would simply be whatever the renewal amount was each year. Along with that, one of the things that we do build in is that little bit of contingency, because we pay a fairly significant percentage for family coverage. We always try to budget for at least one person to change during the year, if not two, from individual to family coverage, because we do have turnover in those positions, as well as an ongoing baby boom. We will be getting one back from maternity leave in November and having one go out on maternity leave in November.
Well, I was a little bit torn as I was reading it, because I think it's a good idea to align ourselves with the village. It was the increased cost that is why I'm just hesitating a little bit on it.
I also, I'm always a promoter of collaborating and aligning with the village as much as possible. But my thoughts were maybe this was too quick to act on, because normally healthcare changes. I would think employees would want to understand it and vet it and understand those changes coming so late in the year. I thought the timing may not be appropriate. I think I'd be supportive of what the staff is recommending, and maybe we need to look at this a little early in the year 2018, a little sooner in the process.
Well, our open enrollment happens annually in November.
Right.
So that's
too
our usual. The staff has had the opportunity to go to open enrollment meetings in the month of October, and they did video that one of those seminars, so there is one available on YouTube so that the staff can go to that. We have all of the information from those open enrollments. So timing-wise, that's why I gave some options in there about how to implement this.
Mm-hmm.
And it may be that the board is interested in doing it with an eye to the 2019 implementation date.
So if you do it this year, the implementation date is January.
Yes, it would become effective January, but the staff has to go through their open
Right.
enrollment elections in the month of November.
But if we implement them, we could implement the new premium structure effective January 1st
Yes.
of 2019. And that would
Well,
allow.
No, 20.
We could,
If
well,
we
we could do it either way. You can
Yeah.
do it for 2018, and we would immediately have the staff going into their open enrollment period, making their new elections, and looking at the new premium structure.
Right.
If it's 2019, then we have the whole year to, talk to them about what the new structure will look like versus the old structure.
Have there been discussions among the staff that this may be something sort of coming down the pipeline, or is it?
The staff did actually see, the board packet was posted. And the last of the open enrollment meetings were after the board packet was posted. So, and we did send around the video of the open enrollment. So they are aware that this is a possibility and are educating themselves about what the options are.
Now, this 54,000, that's assuming everyone stays on their what they currently have as far as the plan. Is that correct? Or is that assuming?
That
they go
is
to the
actually assuming
higher
that they
beta?
go to the higher one
Okay.
at the benefit level that they are at. So
Okay.
if they're employee plus children, that's
Mhm.
employee plus children at the most expensive.
Okay.
We get the advantage now of the Village of Downers Grove. In other words, ours stays flat because they have this policy. That might, I suppose, not always be true.
Well, and frankly, the library has enjoyed a much lower premium than we were able to get before we were working with the village on health insurance, and it's better coverage. So we're very happy to be on the village's plan and able to do this.
Seems to me this health savings account, though, is a pretty attractive feature. And I know back in the day when these first came out, they weren't widely understood, but they're quite almost universally used now, and really quite attractive in covering the higher deductibles and things of that sort. Has there been any reaction? I know over the last 2 or 3 years we've been talking about this, and the employees have realized, at least the ones who care, who are affected by it directly, to significantly have looked at what the village has and what we've had and so forth. I kind of thought this health savings account might be the tiebreaker for me, and might encourage me to move ahead on the thing, but
Well, it certainly is positive. It seems to me it's very positive for our employees. And it also seems that it's something the village is interested in our being a part of. So I would also be either for this year, or I think it is good to give them time, give us time to look at employees, and I wouldn't be opposed to the 2019 implementation.
But wouldn't what the employees are contributing to the health savings account, though, is in addition to what they're paying in the premiums?
The health savings account is by the employer, so that's part of our cost.
Okay, got it.
That's part of that higher cost.
Got it, okay. I have to pay into mine, so I was.
Yeah, okay.
I think
This is a little different plan structure, yeah.
some employers put a chunk in and allow you to
Okay.
put a chunk in.
Yeah.
And is there a comfort level to move on? It sounds to me like there's still a little, maybe not a comfort level here. How, if you want to move ahead now, which maybe, I don't know whether this is a straw poll or what, but maybe speak up if we've had a couple of people say they would perhaps like to seriously look at it during the next year, and and make a commitment to doing that.
Right, and I would say that's kind of where I'm at. I think this is, the momentum will take us here, but I thought it was just, I agree with that, from the timing of it and just the effect on the budget. I mean, we've got a draft budget in place, and this now impacts that
And is it
budget.
possible we can get a little bit more information from the staff themselves on what they would prefer?
But we would have to approve it, I think, today.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, for it to go into
Yeah.
effect, we'd have to do it now, because they only have the month of November
I think that's too short.
to sign up. The
Do we-
village has been asking us to look at this for a while. Is there some greater advantage to the community of Downers Grove if we do this through the village, or you don't want to look at just
Well,
our own?
It's the incentive to move more folks to the Viva plan, because the performance of that plan, it's more cost effective as far as our insurers are concerned.
Keeps the rates down.
And that is what carries us to that flat premium. So the encouragement from the village is to get as many library staff onto the Viva plan as soon as possible, so that we can continue having those flat premiums for as long as possible, or very, very low increases.
Okay, what is the pleasure of the board?
Do we need a motion if we're staying kind of with what we have?
A motion to continue the employee benefit premium plan as is into 2018,
Okay.
unchanged from 2017.
I would,
Go ahead.
I'll make a motion to continue with the current employee benefit plan into 2018, as it currently is.
And I would second that.
Okay, let's have just a little bit more discussion, and we'll take a vote on this. Our two new members are maybe,
So will we
A
put
little
this
bit
on the agenda
mystified by
to
some
be
of it.
talked about in January, February, whatever that's?
Yes.
We can do that, absolutely.
it sounds like the consensus is that we definitely put it on an early agenda
Right.
Sure.
to consider. Any other comments?
And knowing that it's a potential budget increase, now we can plan better going into the 2019 budget process, knowing that dollar is out there.
Any other comments? It's been moved and seconded that we stay with the current plan, with the understanding that we will seriously investigate and the village's plan for next year, which we really haven't done before. Any more comments? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. All right. Good consideration, though. We've committed ourselves to come back to this, so.
Yes.
Okay, we will then move to the number 10 on the agenda, unfinished business. We have a circulation policy to consider and hopefully approve this evening.
And this is the change in lost and damaged materials. We have identified through patron feedback that many of them find the item for a cheaper price at Amazon. This just codifies using that lower price for the items, and then updates the policy in a couple of other ways as far as those charges and streamlines. There are some things that are no longer relevant in there, and Christine Lees, our circulation manager, did a really great explanation there, so if anyone has any questions.
I only had one comment, I guess, and this is
Sure.
just a comment that we may or may not want to include. When we refer to the discount of 40%, I'm wondering if we should just change that to the then applicable discount in case we come becomes a 45%
Yes, it
discount, or it
changes.
becomes a 35% discount. It's just
That's good.
the then applicable discount.
That's-
So we don't have to come back and change the
I
policy.
think that's good.
And there's two places, it's in 6.33, in the second line where it says, on the computer record minus, instead of using the 40% there, just put the then applicable discount. And then the same point down in the second to last line, instead of saying minus 40%, just say minus the then applicable discount.
I think we might say vendor discount. But yeah.
Yeah.
Are other libraries doing this? Is this a common trend?
Yes.
Before we move any further, is there consensus that we can make that change from 40% to current applicable? Okay,
Yes.
we can do that by consensus. All right, then, Susan, if you want to pursue that?
Yes. Making sure our recording secretary has that.
Do you want me to make the motion?
No, I mean, did you have any other questions you were
No,
asking
no.
about other libraries or?
Oh, I just wanted to see this.
Yes, and also the refund for items for lost items that are found within 90 days, that is also something that comes directly from the federal.
I think this is a human kind of plan that is good for our customers and it's simpler for us. The idea of us charging more than Amazon charges to replace an item is
Yeah.
difficult to defend
Yes.
and encourages them to go out and buy their own and try to
Yeah.
give it to us, and that gets complicated with addition numbers and all kinds of things. So, any other discussion on this? I hear a motion to approve the revised circulation policy.
I move we approve the revised circulation policy.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
This is a policy, so I think we need a roll call, or can we?
You can voice vote this.
We can voice vote this. All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion is carried unanimously. We have approved the revised circulation policy. Let's move on to the 2018 wage and salary schedule.
There it is. I did some comparisons to other libraries, both libraries in our area and libraries that were directly comparable to us on a number of different factors, looking at, what are we paying in what is a reasonable range? Are our ranges generally in line with those others? And it shows that absolutely yes. And so I am recommending no changes at this time to the wage and salary schedule from 2017 to 2018. The one thing that I did add is that the codicil that any individual at the maximum of their salary range may earn a performance bonus of up to the percentage of the across-the-board salary increase for that year. This bonus is paid in a lump sum at year end upon approval of satisfactory performance by the individual's supervisor. That's a straight up addition. We do have a number of staff who have reached their maximum in their pay grade. We do want to still have some sort of incentive to those folks to continue their excellent performance. So that was kind of a how do we balance those two items? So do with it what you will.
Well, how does that factor into the percentages then? Because then if our schedule fits within kind of what our competition is, but then we're kind of going outside the schedule to get the bonuses.
It does not compute to their base salary, so it's not, so if in the next year we decide that we're not going to do that anymore, it is not, their base salary has not increased beyond that amount. Plus, it does circumvent, but trying to balance this
Mhm.
for those folks who have been here a long time.
So how many employees might that affect?
I believe we are at 3.
Okay, so it's not a big number then for budget-wise, this addition.
No, but it seems to me that it does give long-time employees who are bumping their head against the ceiling an incentive, though,
Yes.
which they currently do not have,
Yes.
to maintain their exemplary performance that got them to that point. It doesn't establish a new base, as you've said, so next year, if they get the same bonus, they get the same money. But I would hate to see that become an automatic. I would like to see it remain an incentive, but I could support it.
We seem to have had a lot of personnel changes recently. Have any of these people left because of salaries?
Not at this time.
Not at this time. Okay.
I know, to my other earlier comment about collaboration with the village, I know they had a similar program like this a number of years ago that they elected not to proceed with. So again, it's the spirit of kind of thinking of the greater village library operation. I think my position would be to keep it more the same. If that's not a program on that side, I'm a little bit concerned that could cause issues as well.
So that these people then would never get any raise.
Because they're at the top of
They're
their
at the top,
salary
but-
range.
And our top isn't
Yeah,
really
It's
high.
tough. Right, it's a tough decision.
No, I think this, this to me, like that particular point sort of reminds me of the previous point with the insurance, in the sense that since it only affects 3 people, I do agree with you're trying to balance the positions here. And so I would be okay with moving forward sort of year by year. This year, it's okay, like let's move forward with it and then evaluate it and have further discussions about how it might work going forward. And maybe we need to change the salary schedule itself. Because I actually prefer that if there's something wrong with the salary schedule, then change the salary schedule. I would prefer to do that rather than to work my way outside of it.
And that was exactly why I went and did those comparisons and looked at the salary schedules and also how the ranges were structured, and our ranges are structured right in line with all the rest. So eventually, this year, in 2017, we worked on the strategic plan and the capital needs, and now we're moving on to the financial plan, long-range budget stuff. Then we're going to work on the policy manual. After that is compensation, just so you know.
It is a little difficult to take those programs away too, even though it's something you review year by year, so. Just.
Well, and it's performance bonus. It's a bonus. I mean, it's not you.
Right.
I think you'd have to have specifics.
At a prior place that I worked, they had something similar, and it was amazing how people always maxed out on the bonus thing. So it wasn't, I'm not saying that would happen here, but clearly there's, yeah.
You say the village had it and then
That's my
did
understanding.
not
Yes.
renew it?
That's right.
Yes, that is my understanding, that the village once had a policy like this, and they removed it several years ago.
Yeah, I
So in
was under the
terms of-
impression it was still there. So
No.
It's part of what
In terms of where it says satisfactory performance, is there a standardized evaluation for employees?
Yes.
And would there be like a numerical threshold for that bonus to kind of be there, or what?
We are currently revising our performance evaluation documents. There is not a numeric, there is no quantitative component to our performance evaluations as they stand today.
It was your pleasure.
Is this something we need to approve this?
Yeah, this is your base salaries for the upcoming year. It's
I will-
generally done this time of year.
I will make a motion to approve the proposed 2018 wage and salary schedule, subject to the addition of the performance bonus structure as set forth on agenda item 10B.
I second.
And actually, it is at the bottom.
Okay.
Just for clarification, this is, that addition is for 1 year.
Yeah.
Yes,
Only.
and then next year,
This
we
is for
will
2018.
approve the 2019 wage and salary schedule, and you can take it back up.
So we can either do it or not do it.
Yep.
Any other discussion? It's been moved and seconded that we approve the policy, including the bonus for long-term employees that are at the top of their bracket. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Nay.
Motion is carried. All right, let's, well, move to the budget then,
All right.
the fun part.
So, you have the budget in your packets. It begins with the narrative. The narrative is actually unchanged. It was not updated since the last board packet. However, there were some minor changes within the operating budget as it was presented. Very small things, mostly within the salaries. You probably won't notice them because they kind of come out in the wash when you get to the bottom line. And that was adjustments within some of the proposed changes to those jobs. So, the first page in your packet is actually the operating fund balances. Those are presented in a format very similar to what you will see in the village's budget. It does start with our beginning balance in both the operating fund and the library building and equipment replacement fund. So it shows the revenues for the proposed budget, the expenses for the proposed budget. It does include that transfer of fund balance from the operating to that replacement fund. And you can also see there in the expenses for the replacement fund, the 2018 project that we have discussed previously. We had the architect walk through in a committee of the whole meeting in, was that August? Yes, it was August. So the amount, budgeted amount for that is included there in the replacement fund expenditures. On the revenues sheet, then we're strictly into operating fund. That has the current property tax as that first line. That would be the tax levy for the year. That is the actual dollar amount. That's the piece that you actually control. That's the one that you can say with certainty. When you get into talking about the tax rate and the cost per taxpayer per household, you are into estimates and guesstimates. This is the number you actually control, and this is the number that actually goes to the village to be included in their levy ordinance. Let's see, is there anything else I wanted to highlight there? And then we get into the expenditures. We have the simplified expenditures. That is just all of those lines added up together. We did break down into a subtotal for you there on the staffing expenditures so that you can see the total amount. We do have a pretty hefty increase on the lines for health insurance, optical and dental insurances, but those are based on changes from individual to family and a placeholder to change from individual to family for at least 2 folks during 2018. That's kind of our hedge against it happening because we do have turnover in quite a few positions. Then everything else is on that next page. That's all the non-personnel expenditures. And as you can see, that comes out flat. The total operating budget increase is at 2.4% as presented. Then you get into the detail. The first 2 pages show that's the totals, and then you get into the individual departments. So you can see what's in administration, what the cost of adult services versus children's, and all of our various, and those all roll up to that grand total. The next page is our tax rate, levy, and EAV history, and that shows it's the estimated rate for 2018 versus the actual rates in the prior years. And again, the same with the levies and our EAVs. We are estimating the 4.8% equalized assessed valuation increase, and that comes from our tax assessors and our townships, and it is the same number that the village is using in estimating their budget for the next year. I did include in this packet, that would be on the levy side, it comes out to a 3.9% increase, but the effective increase to our tax rate and our individual households is expected to be lower because, of course, the value of the property in the district is growing faster than that. Then I did include for you some some charts on the standards for Illinois public libraries. The expenditures, 70% is salaries and benefits. That is typical for libraries. The typical for libraries is also about 12% for materials. We are actually at 13%. That means 83% of our budget is spoken for in just a couple of places. The averages on everything else are pretty standard. And then on the revenue side, to remember that libraries in Illinois are primarily property tax funded. 96%, that is not uncommon. We get a personal property replacement tax that accounts for about 1%. We get our Illinois Public Library per capita grant, that's also somewhere in the 1% or less, depending on the year. And then, our next biggest is fines and fees. There really isn't a whole lot of other sources of revenue for libraries. So, what questions do you have for me? I actually have the budget on an Excel spreadsheet that we can project if anybody wants to look at how anything affects, if there's something we want to plug in there and see what happens.
It seems to me there's kind of 3 buckets or 3 areas we could discuss. One is, do we have agreement on I'll call it the cost elements and the 5.4 million expense items? That's kind of a bucket. There's a number of changes and deltas. Do we agree with that? So that I almost see that as kind of one discussion. The other discussion then is, do we agree on the 660 for the capital, which I think is the next agenda item, right? So we can cover that in a couple of minutes. Third then is the transfer of the surplus, which we're running again, the surplus. Do we put all of that in the capital fund, or do we give that back to the taxpayers, some amount? That could be an option. And what I mean by that is we could take that 350 and split it and put, say, 100 in the capital fund, and take 250 and put it back in the operating fund, and that way we keep the levy flat. We could make those kinds of decisions too, correct?
Yep.
Correct.
In my, I'm looking at it, I think possibly very similarly, but I think maybe slightly more globally, in the sense that what I'm really focused on, and I'd mentioned this at last month's meeting, is the increase in the property tax levy as a percentage versus the EAV, essentially. But, and I know we especially cannot control the EAV. And the number, the 3.8% increase, it just strikes me as being a little bit too high. And I haven't gone back. I mean, we have the last 6 years on within this information. We could go back even further, but I'm thinking like a number like 2.5% to me would make me feel more comfortable than 3.8%. And what I was focused on was one of the buckets that Ed had referred to was the transfer to the capital fund, so not necessarily changing anything on the expense side, but just reducing, and it really doesn't take that large of a reduction. I think this is what Ed was getting at as well, is if you changed it, even $70,000, if you went from 350 down to 280, it takes the increase in the property tax levy down to about 2.5% from 3.8%. And so that's kind of what I was focused
Actually,
on.
it doesn't. Let me stop you there
Okay.
and bring you back up here. So if you look at, here, we'll go to the revenues. Okay, we're going to go back and forth between fund balances and revenues. So on the revenues, you're looking here.
Right.
Total revenue, already, your net change is almost identical to what we're transferring. We're basically using fund balance only to transfer those funds already.
Well, no, but if you,
So what you're doing here, let me, revenue side, so this, to get to revenue, this is the number you would have to change.
right,
Okay. In order, if you reduce that
Mhm.
by
$70,000. let's say.
$70,000, then over here, this fund balance would be reduced by the same amount. If you reduce this, you're right, you can keep your,
Right, so just if you take that
whether
down-
you transfer, the transfer of funds
Right.
does not necessarily change the levy. You need to decide what you want here.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
If you just started with that and reduced it by $70,000.
Okay. Which is not the way these spreadsheets are structured. Hang on.
It seems like if you change this by 70,000 and then change the proposed transfer to the capital fund by 70,000, it would balance it. Like those two things would balance
Yes.
each other out.
So what you're saying is lower the levy,
Right.
but also lower the transfer
Right.
to the reserve fund
Right.
in order to reduce the levy
operate-
and yet still keep the fund balance.
Yes.
Okay.
Now when my point on this though is that this is all proposed,
Mhm.
and so we have things like legal expenses that may end up being a lot higher, and so we can't transfer in as much, or we may run a larger surplus than we're expecting, and so maybe we can actually still transfer in the 350 even based on that levy. But I think that at the beginning of the year, just proposing it again, starting with the increase in the levy is really kind of where I was what I'm focused on, and then that, but not affecting the kind of the operations of the library.
So you're thinking more along the lines of retroing so that we're adjusting the levy to make sure that that's as flat as
Yes.
possible,
Yes.
and then spending down the fund balance
Yes.
like a year in arrears
Right.
to
Oh.
keep track. Okay.
Can I interject just a second? I just, I like that concept in terms of, easier to sell to our customers, except, what about our kids and grandkids? What we're talking about is taking money away from the future capital fund.
No, Greg, that's where I think in
we-
the strategic plan, we still need to fund the capital plan. So I think it's beholden to us to ensure we're putting in.
Right.
It's just, and then here's the other dynamic, right? That I'm worried about taxpayers. How much do we build that capital fund? It's pretty good size now. So there could be folks that say, you know, what are you doing? Because they don't understand the dynamics we did with the village to get to that point really quickly, right? Working closely with the village. You know, we've been able to work a process where that money then became available. So I'm worried about that increasing and increasing and increasing. I think people could ask some questions. And
Well, I think they,
so I think we need to make sure that we're managing that capital fund to what we think is an acceptable level, which matches the sustainability plan for the facility.
And we're essentially still funding it at 80%
Right.
of what's being proposed, and effectively reducing the tax levy by the 20%.
I understand that. I'm also looking at the capital plan, which is not fully fleshed out, but we did a lot of work on coming
Right.
up with what do we need next year, what do we need 5 years from now, and each year.
Right.
I mean, a reserve study is essentially what we did. And if we reduce that substantially here, we kind of have to make it up later, or we don't fix the roof when it leaks, or something down the road. And so I want to be cautious that we don't underfund our
Right.
reserve funds.
Absolutely agree with you.
So I just want to be reasonably confident that we're
So a number.
finding some balance between those 2
Yeah.
points.
We talk all the time about, the entire time I've been in the library, no changes have been very small on people's tax bills. It just, and no one has ever objected to, complained about, mentioned their tax bills. So I think that you have to, realistically, is this a major issue in the community? I don't think so. I do think the condition of the library and the staff and the facilities are a major issue in the library, that we have to be, and we are elected to make sure that that maintains itself and that we have an excellent library. You can
Right.
nickel and dime yourself right out of, what the community wants.
Right, at the end of I think further reviewing the capital budget, we have to do that to make sure that whatever plan we implement sort of works with a long-term capital budget. My concern is that if our budget is growing faster than the community that we're here to support, that's a problem. It's not a problem this year or next year, but it compounds every year. And it becomes, if you run your retirement plan analysis at 8% versus 9% over 30 years, it's a huge difference. And so if we're at 2.5% every year versus 3.5% every year, it's not going to be important to anybody on a year-by-year basis, but it becomes important over a long period of time.
The other comment I think maybe we just need to understand, we're starting the year with a $900,000 balance. So already,
Estimated.
right, but we're 75% through that. So already we're almost lining ourselves up for another surplus, maybe that size by the end of 2018. So I just think that's what I'm concerned about. How fast is the capital fund being increased?
And this is exactly why we need our financial plan that we've been talking about for
Which we don't have.
the last year. We did do our strategic plan. We did do the capital needs assessment. We figured out along the way that our capital needs are $4.5 million roughly.
Roughly.
We've got $1 million and a little bit banked already. That's where the origin of the $350,000, because that was a 10-year plan. So you take out your $1 million and you've got your $350,000 over time. So that was the quick and dirty version of how we're going to get to where we need to be over 10 years in the capital fund. We are committed to doing that long-term financial plan, and that's the next step. It has not happened, but we're getting there, to be able to project out and to get ourselves some really great projections that can help us figure out how exactly we're going to do that and try to keep within, that 2.5%-ish on an annual basis, and still get ourselves to have enough money to fund the capital needs. So we don't have to decide the long-term strategy today.
No.
We can,
I just don't want to dig a hole that we
can't get out
that we
of.
can't climb out of. I'm wondering, I hear two sort of different schools of thought. I wonder if we can come together in the middle someplace here a little bit.
In the middle is between 2.5% and 3.8%?
Or between 7
I should have started at
1% here. I don't know. I'm asking you.
That's what it sounds like to me.
I would encourage that kind of thought.
Well, the 3.8% just strikes me. I love the library. I mean, I want to protect it just like everyone else does, and I want it to be here for my kids and grandkids.
I know.
But the 3.8% just, if somebody says, "What did your operating levy go up by last year?" 3.8%, like that. It just strikes me as being too high, and then I'm looking at how can we sort of move the parts around to make it fit within a more reasonable operating levy. And I'm actually, because I'm so confident in Julie, that based on what I've seen so far, we'll still be able to put 350 in there at the end of the year.
Let's hope so. Yeah, we should be able to. We should be able to for the next couple of years, but that, we're only kicking that can down the road. And to be able, that's why I really think that doing the financial plan is so important.
Oh, yeah.
And quite frankly, I'm going to get some help with it because I think I need that to make sure that we can hit those projections. 2.5 maybe a little aggressively low because remember, 70% of your cost is personnel. And when you're talking about holding to 2.5, that basically means nobody ever gets a raise more than 2.5%. And if by chance your health insurance jumps, nobody may get a raise at all. Because those are some of our highest costs that we don't have direct control.
All right. I understand.
But that's to argue out with the financial planners.
Yeah. Is there a middle ground here that we could get together on? The 3.8 doesn't sit well with you. Is it the 0.8 or is it the 3?
No, I think it's if it were 3, I think I would, because that's what we're projecting, right? There are other things that we're sort of linking to 3. We're looking at that as a possible number. I think it goes back to what some of Ed's points too about we have, we get this opportunity each year to do this, and it just so happens that we're lucky enough to have a cushion already. And so I don't necessarily think that by reducing it from the budget, that's necessarily digging a hole because we already, we're out of that hole at this point. But if it were 3%, I think that I would feel differently about it versus 3.8. And then essentially all the focus being just reduce what's going in to the capital fund as being the proposal.
So basically that capital fund goes down 100K, just rounded up.
No, it wouldn't even be that. It would be 50,000 maybe.
Yeah. I would caution against the word cushion because that fund is, we're sitting in this multi-million-dollar facility that is supporting our programming, and it has a roof, it has a boiler, it has air conditioning units and so forth, that are eventually, that quote cushion is to pay for those things when they break. So I'm not saying I'm arguing with the actual numbers, I just,
Right. No,
a little nervous about the word
And the
cushion.
fund balance level that is in the financial policy for the board is set, it comes out to about $300,000. It's 1/3 of what it would cost to do this, that, and the other thing. Anyway, it comes out to about $300,000. So, under what we just put up there, which would take 70 grand, and that was just an additional 70,000 coming out of the fund balance, we still wind up with about $170,000 at the end of 2018 that would be beyond that fund balance for the operating fund.
Okay, folks, we need a proposal.
What do you want to see for the next meeting? Do you want me to run it with the levy at 2.5% and 3%?
Can we run it both ways, the 3% and then,
Maybe 3%, 2.5, and 2.75.
Wait a minute, what did you
I
just say?
can name that tune for. All right, so overall, on the expenditure side, we're good. Okay, I will be tightening up some of those numbers, just based on some of the staffing stuff. If we get some folks hired, we may have some answers to some questions before we go into the next one. So those may be tightened up a little tiny bit, but it won't be a whole lot that will move the needle. So I can do the versions of the levy amount at 3%, 2.75%, and 2.5% increase year over year. And run those figures for you so that you can see what does that do to our fund balances, whether we reduce. I'll do it with the $350,000. We can always change at the meeting what the transfer to the fund
I
balance
think we did
is.
that last year, something similar where you were
Yeah,
able
we
to
kind of adjusted.
actively live, and that was really helpful, actually. So.
Yeah, and that one's easier to change. When you get into the levy stuff, all of my spreadsheets are embedded and it gets a little funky.
So, and next month is the end?
Yes.
50.
Now remember,
We have to do it
we
with-
have, our meeting is on the 15th of November. We have been given a deadline of November 29th by the village to submit our levy to them. So that is the last meeting we actually have scheduled. If you don't pass it at that meeting, you will then need to hold a special meeting
On Thanksgiving.
in order to meet the deadline on Thanksgiving. And we'll have birthday cake because it's my son's 16th birthday.
So just recap, 2.53, and was there a...
2.75, so we'll do one split the
there's-
difference.
And in those models, you do see the operating expense decreasing and or the levy decreasing? Where do you?
I was just going to keep the expenditures, will be
Right, got
basically
it.
what you see here.
Yep.
It will just be the levy dollar amount that is changing.
Okay.
So the
Yeah.
only spot that will change is, don't look where I'm going here, this number at the top. So we will adjust that and then do a fund balance page for each of those so that it will show you where we're going with it. Good?
I think that's good, and just, again, to clarify, I don't think we're talking about compromising our competitiveness in the people market, which is still the 70% of our budget,
And maintaining our.
and we cannot do that.
And we've run with a very good fund balance for quite some time, and it's it's great to be able to say that and to be able to look at our budget as we're getting to the end of the fiscal year and be pretty sure that we will be adding even more to that fund balance than the projection. So keep your fingers
Keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, keep your fingers crossed.
And then, of course, as I was suggesting, I want to relate that in some, I realize, not very precise way to the capital needs that have been forecast.
Yes. And that's it.
I don't
And
wanna-
every year we come in under budget. Those are dollars that can go, in my mind, directly to the capital replacement fund toward that future cost and be able to, not have to transfer so much, not have to take a bite out of the operating fund for those future capital needs.
Okay. The architectural services proposal.
And this is the, and my iPad decided to just stop working. Okay, there we go. That is a proposal from our architect for the 2018 proposed project. You've seen it there. And this is a flat fee proposal from them for that project and that scope of work where, we walked it, you've seen it. You can do this now, you can do this later.
Board members
Mhm.
get to go.
Yes, we did the walking tour with Kim and Swapna and Wendy and I last week Wednesday during their orientation.
I think we've discussed this quite extensively. Are there any final questions?
Yeah, so Julie, in the last board packet, the individual items had a cost. So it seems like today we're going to be approving the whole package. Not
This is
necessarily-
only for the architectural to actually spec out the entire package. I think what you're thinking of is the cost estimates
Right.
that they had attached to each of
That's the
these.
600 something.
Yes,
K.
and that 660 actually includes the architectural services.
Okay, so we're basically just approving them to take it to the next step to get a more.
To start
prepare
designing
the-
and speccing
That's
and,
fine.
Prepare the specs and maybe start putting, bid specs and
yeah.
get it out to bid. Yeah, this is just the
Start looking at
architectural
what
fees.
it's going to do and then see where we can value engineer to fit as much as we can.
Do I hear a motion to approve this?
I so move.
Moved by Susan,
I will second.
seconded by John. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion's carried unanimously.
So our new facilities manager will have a project to work on first.
Yeah. Speaking of the new facilities manager, I think the next item on our agenda is the director's report. What can you tell us?
So I finished our first round of interviews for facilities manager. We had 7 people interview. We are going to take 3 finalists to a full panel interview. When I do interviews for management team, I like everybody to meet our candidates. So they will meet with my wonderful, brand new assistant director, Jen Fredericks, and myself. And we will then have them meet with the management team, so all the rest of the managers, and then with the departmental staff. So they really get to meet everybody, and we get everyone's input on the hiring. So looking forward to that. We're currently in the scheduling debate, so that will be coming right along. We did get our appraisal back, so we have put those new insured values to our new insurer. And this is where the public library per capita grant requirements come in. So I've listed several here. There is a requirement to review a continuing education webinar. It turns out, so They gave us the requirements in like a requirements sheet, and then they released the application this week. And it doesn't say the same thing. So for the continuing education requirement to view the safety video, only one trustee actually has to do that. So if someone would like to volunteer, that will be an online recorded webinar that you can do from home, and it just needs to be done by January 15th.
You just watch it.
Yeah, you just watch it.
I can.
And then
Yeah, we had one of those.
Yeah.
I'm happy.
We had something similar on FOIA a few years ago.
Exactly. And then, and of course, the trustee facts file. So chapters 1 through 5 by January. You have homework. It's awesome.
But you are not, we don't have that yet.
I will bring
Okay,
it.
okay,
I
so
will
make
bring it
sure-
to you. They're sitting in my office.
Is there a new edition of it?
Yes, there's
Okay,
a new
'cause I
edition,
have
so
one.
I will run it to you in just
Okay,
a moment.
okay.
And so we are also getting our applications for adult and teen services manager, since Nicole will be leaving us to go to Colorado.
Yeah. Well,
So that, other than that, lots of hiring, lots of interviews.
why don't you just make a brief statement to our audience, at least, about our new assistant director?
And Jen Fredericks was our manager for technical services for about 5 years, and she was an internal candidate, and she and I have decided we're going to give this a shot. And in addition, we are also looking at some changes to the technical services department and the way that we're doing tech services in the library. Jen is an amazing statistician. She really she's very detail-oriented and very process-oriented, which is great. And for me, we're looking at how we do things and why we do things, and just diving right in. She has taken on the performance evaluation form first thing. So, welcome, Jen.
Very good. Well, thank you. And this was part of our long-range plan and part of the strategic planning process that is being now implemented in structural changes within the library management. So,
And just a quick shout out and a thank you to Bonnie Reed, who is in the audience today, our retired assistant director, who is now one of our fine members of the public out there in the audience.
all right. Do any of our board members have any comments or requests for information? Hearing none, is there any objection to adjourning this meeting? Hearing none, the meeting is adjourned.